Heatwave. I started blasting. Bang! Wow. Bang! Well, I don't see so good, so I missed. Then they ran away. I ran after them.
Okay.
Bang!
You know what Undertale is. I know you know what Undertale is. It's only one of the most successful indie games of all time. A game that spawned a following big enough to overturn countries, which at the time was really unheard of. Now it's just Tuesday. God bless your soul, Gooseworks. I used to love Undertale. A bit too much, but I digress. But like, how could I not? This game captivated everyone. Everybody wanted to fuck the funny skeleton, never mind. However, and this is a big ass however, Undertale aged, and in a lot of places, aged bad. The combat, as great as bullet hell combat is in theory, dragged on for a millennia in a pacifist run. Also, parts of the game post-Waterfall suck ass, and the way the game berates you for deviating off a pacifist run is... Bottom line is that Undertale is a game that, in retrospect, could have done better in quite a few places. But that didn't stop the horde. There was so much Undertale fan stuff that it was nauseating, both in terms of quantity and contents. Ugh. Through the Harvest Valley of fan content, one video piqued my interest. It was a trailer of a Snowden segment from a fan game called, you can guess. What caught my attention was this beautiful animated bit from Figburn, which I'm gonna completely go off topic here and say that Figburn is one of the greatest artists I've ever seen. Here's his Twitter, which you're gonna go follow. This is not a request. This is an assault threat. From then on, the term Undertale Yellow was logged into my brain palace where it would remain dormant for years, until current year when writing and last year when uploading, when Undertale Yellow finally released. Directed by Master Sword Remix, who's someone who's been around the block for a while, and the same assault threat applies here, and a team of over 20 people, and a development cycle of 7 years, Jesus Christ! Development started on February 4th, 2016 after Toby Fox greenlit the game's creation. A demo was released on November 30th of that year that I somehow missed. And look how dinky this thing is compared to now. Come on, that's genuinely awe-inspiring. And finally, the full game got its release on December 9th, 2023, and it was good. It was really goddamn good, like astronomically good. It has no business being this good. The level of back-to-back quality this game oozes out of every crevice and pore is mind-boggling. This game took everything Undertale did and damn near perfected it, even doing better than Deltarune in some cases. Everything down to the characters, to the world, to the music, to the animation, and I do mean to the animation, oh my god! Okay, I'm getting way ahead of myself. This wasn't supposed to be the next video. This wasn't even meant to be a video. I wasn't even planning on working on anything YouTube related for the rest of the year. But this game completely changed all of that, and the little goblin in my head will not grant me mercy, so I guess this is what we're doing for the next 15 to 20 minutes. For starters, this is one of these, so I can't have this, and instead we have this, and I ain't gonna front. I prefer this. This is Gun Hat. The sixth child to fall into the underground, which is a weird choice. Why not the first child? Or the second? You know, anybody but the sixth one. And then you realize Clover's heart represents justice, and he has a fucking gun. I see why they chose him. The game starts pretty much the same as the original Undertale, which I think is a dodecahedron brain move. By giving the game almost the same start, but just having Toriel's design being slightly different gives us a false sense of direction. If you barely looked at any of the gameplay beforehand like I did, you'd think the game would be a reskin with just some slight differences. But once you get to the second puzzle of the ruins, the floor gives way and you get taken to a lower level. This level is entirely new, and from here on out, the game never reconnects to the original until the last 10 minutes. This fall quite literally sets the path for the game's direction, and this never connecting extends to the characters. I have to hand it to the development team for having the balls to make an Undertale prequel, but barely using anyone from Undertale, and none of them are the funny skeletons. One of the biggest selling points of a prequel is to see the characters you love before the parents that made you love them, unless you're Before the Storm, in which case your goal is to make me wish this stupid bitch was never born. And Undertale's characters have prequel stories that could be told, but again, they had the balls to not use any of them. And you know what's fucked up? Is that it works. It mostly works. Every single character in this game is great, and not once did I wish I was with somebody else. In hindsight though, I do have gripes, but I'm gonna be a little vague about them and instead save the spoilery stuff for the more, you know, spoiler-filled story section of the video. To vaguely put it, they do not give multiple characters enough screen time in this. Like, I like them, but you gotta give me more of them. Plus, none of them, in my opinion, quite reach the same highs as Undertale's roster. Some get close, but they just barely fall short. Though I can say that I wholeheartedly, at the very least, like every single one of them, which is something I can't say about the original. This extends to the enemies too. Some of them are the greatest things to grace God's creation. However, and this is a small ass however, I did notice something. The designs in this game don't really fit with the original Undertale. What I mean by that is look at every design in Undertale. All of them fit together and you can easily tell that all of them are from the same thing. It's the same with Deltarune too. Yellow does have this. Every character looks like they fit together, yet they all seem different from the way Undertale's characters are. I don't really know how to explain it better than this. Maybe it's the softer, fluffier designs compared to the more rugged, downright creepy at the time designs of the original, or maybe it's that Yellow's characters are more anthropomorphic than, you know, monsterish, but they do feel different. This isn't a bad thing, not at all, it's just a thing. Though I can see the argument that how this choice deviates from the whole, you know, scary monsters that are actually good on the inside thing that Undertale had going for it. Alongside the amazing looking characters is the amazing world design. Don't get me wrong, Undertale is a nice looking game and has its fair share of pretty scenery, but Yellow is just on another level. This game is a constant treat for the eyes. Just look at Snowdin in the original compared to Yellow. It's staggering how much of a difference there is. I think a good portion of it is how Yellow uses a lot less empty space in the original. In the original Undertale, you have the immediate area around you, then you have this black nothingness everywhere else, and it stays that way for the entire game. There are a few places where this isn't the case, but for the most part, the void stays. The void doesn't take away from anything, and Yellow also has a few good moments like this, but for over half of Yellow, the screen's fully filled, which I think helps these areas feel more full and believable. Coupled with the better pixel art, and you have a game that makes my brain melt. There are 6 locations in the game. The 4 returning ones are the Ruins, Snowdin, Hotland, and Newholm, with the Dunes and the Steamworks being the completely new locations. As previously stated, the returning areas are completely different this time around, and because of that, despite these being returning areas, they feel completely new. And the areas that are new are pretty great too. I could have seen the Steamworks seeping into the annoying territory like with how Hotland did in the original, but they managed to keep it short enough and fresh enough to stop it from getting to that point. The dunes are also super damn pretty, and the best area in the game hands down. I don't really know what else to say besides that. Very nice. What I can say though is that the animations have also received a massive upgrade. Enemy attacks are way more animated than this. Hell, enemies in general are way more animated than this. Like, look at this little fella coming out of his igloo shell. Beautiful. Every single enemy is animated during their fights, which is something I found odd about the original. Like, a portion of the enemies are animated, but another portion isn't? And which ones were and weren't felt like random chance. Like, Papyrus isn't animated, but Aaron is? In the latter half of the game, most of the enemies are animated, but it just makes the ones that aren't feel weird. This feels weird. Move, damn it! The fight backgrounds have also been touched up in the sense that they are interesting now. Because in the original, with some exceptions, you're either hit with geometry or fucking nothing. Yellow said fuck this, and look how goddamn pretty that is. The regular fights are still just basic geometry, but it wasn't an issue to begin with, I'm just an asshole. But now the colors change to fit the area you're currently in, and that is such a nothing addition. They didn't need to do that, but they did it anyways. Like, look at the first major fight in the game. He has a lightning attack, and when he uses it, it illuminates the corridor behind him. That's so fucked up! And that's just in combat. The overworld sprites have also been polished to a shine. They look better, they're shaded, and they move more. Like, look at Clover getting down. This is fucking nuts! For some reason though, they didn't polish up the returning characters, and it does result in one scene with Alphys looking weird because, yeah, way to make the already different looking characters feel more apart. Hooray. And of course, they didn't just stop at the visuals, they also made the gameplay better. First things first, they added a run button. Now, like what I said with Quake and its jump button about a year ago, something that seems completely simple can end up making a huge impact. A run is a bit less impactful than adding true verticality to a shooter, but you get what I mean. Backtracking in the original became a chore, a headache, and was downright unconstitutional. Oh, but I hear you say, oh, just get the 90 quid glam burger and quit bitching. No! I'm gonna march my happy ass all the way back to Snowdin to give the nice lady my money for her food that's just as good. Thank you very much. Yellow also has puzzles, and they are not better nor worse than the originals, and that sense of empathy is how I feel about the original's puzzles. Hey, remember the snow race in the original and how it was a pretty okay little minigame? Well, there's a few more, and they're fucking weirdly high quality. An entire shmup, a card game? You don't need to do this, Jesus Herobrine Christ. Now, in terms of the actual combat, you know, an RPG staple, Uh-oh. The combat is more or less the same as the original, for better and worse. You have a choice of what you want to do when it's your turn, and when it's the enemy's turn, you get a small bullet hell segment. The bullet hell segments are incredibly fun and unsurprisingly very well animated. Some enemies will even do standout things, like an enemy that makes the floor wet to an enemy that attacks with sound on either side of the screen, and the music will only play from the side that they're attacking from. That's neat as hell. Fights have two options, fight and mercy, with the mercy option being Undertale's whole reason for existing. To mercy an enemy, you need to figure out what specific thingy you need to do in order to not have the enemy want your head on a pike and then spare them. The real challenge comes from not wanting to kill somebody out of anger with how long these fights can go. They can go up to well over a minute depending on if the monster has multiple steps to spare them, so you have to do one step, dodge, do another step, dodge, do another step, 7 hours later, and I just wanna... Oh boy, it's time to bitch about Undertale's main selling point. The Pacifist Route can become super stale very quickly because once you fight one monster, every single encounter with that monster will play the exact same way forever. Yes, I understand in normal RPGs that's the standard, but quickly clicking through menus to make the red stuff come out and not having to worry about being put in the bad bin is a bit more digestible than the same Toho Peacemaker you've done 4 times over in the past 5 minutes. The jokes help, but they'll quickly go from funny to cause for violence before the halfway mark, which actually destroyed any sense of replayability Undertale had past its 2 routes, and it's the same here. I just ended up running from fights near the end because I did not want to fucking deal with this shit, and if there's 2 enemies, fuck that! The other option is to, of course, murder people, but if you murder people, you go in the bad bin. Where Frisk was more of a melee-focused person, Clover is... an American. It's the same concept as Undertale's attack system, attack at the right moment to deal more damage and make the red stuff come out faster. Except, and I don't know how they did it, but it feels a lot more satisfying to attack in this game. And once you get the wild revolver and it's 6 shots, it's like crack. I don't think anyone has described Undertale's combat as crack. Nor should they. Unfortunately though, if the Pacifist Route had to have a problem, the Genocide Route did too. Well, until they actually fixed it in this game. In a Genocide run, you'll need to kill all the areas in the location you're in to continue the run. This is all fine and epic until you get to the final few enemies, where in the original game, it'll take you several minutes just to get 1 spawn. Which I get is intentional to make you really feel like there's no one left after your spree, literally having to dig around to find any stragglers. But the towns being empty and all NPCs being gone do the job just as well. They also make you do it multiple times, with your reward being more Bible verses as the game keeps telling you to repent and also go fuck yourself. This dragged the Genocide Route to a complete halt for at worst over like 20 minutes just to do this bullshit. Yellow handles it in a way that still drives the original point home, but also makes it a lot more bearable. Instead of grinding out an ever-decreasing spawn pool of enemies in one room, you now have a certain amount of enemies that will spawn in that room with normal encounter rates. Once you kill everyone in the room, the game tells you that the room's empty with the encounter bubble above your head, which means you'll have to go to the next room that has encounters to keep going. The encounter rates never drop down, and all you have to do is move on until the next time you can encounter enemies. It never hits that sludge feeling that the original has, and in my opinion feels a lot more brutal. Making you have to go and fight every type of monster makes it feel a lot worse. And narratively, you have a kid going room to room slaughtering everybody, with the people in the next room having no idea what's about to happen to them. That's metal as fuck. They also added fatal wounded sprites to every enemy in the game to make you feel even more like a piece of shit. This change turned the combat from having 2 big problems to only having 1 problem, and it's when you're trying to be a good person. The consistent thing between every route are the quality of the boss fights. Genocide, neutral, pacifist, it doesn't matter. If it's a boss fight, it's gonna be so damn good. Especially the harder Genocide Route bosses. Those are phenomenal, except for 1. I do have 1 more problem with the combat, and it's more of an I'd rather this be the case than anything else. In the overworld, there are some segments where obstacles are being thrown at you, and if they hit you, you're booted to a quick bullet hell fight to try and dodge the obstacles, which is okay, but in Deltarune, they actually had these encounters happen in the overworld with your heart showing up above you. It's a way more seamless and cooler method of doing this rather than booting you into a regular fight. It's not a big deal, but I would rather it been done this way instead of this way. Overall, the combat is pretty alright. The bullet hell aspect is amazing, and the Genocide Route is actually tolerable. It's just the sparing that bogs it down. It's not putrid, I don't feel violated by how it's done, but it is my least favorite thing about Yellow in the original. In all reality though, I've just wanted the game with normal RPG elements, but with Undertale's gameplay for like 8 years. The last thing I can mention before the big thing is the the music, anyone who is anyone knows that Undertale is a kick-ass album with a free game included. Toby Fox is an amazing composer, hands down one of my favorite composers of all time. Undertale's soundtrack never goes below a 7 out of 10 for any of the songs. Hell, half the OST is in my music library. And unsurprisingly, Yellow's OST hits hard as fuck. And fuck hits hard. The soundtrack was composed by Master Sword Remix, Noteblock, My New Soundtrack, and Figburn, with Glitch Pie, Ember, and Dilzel providing additional tracks, as well as Scott Joplin through a cover of his 1902 rag song, The Entertainer, for Song 16 organ demo. Now we're having a fucking grand old time. The OST has an impressive 135 song track list, and all of them are bangers. The track list features both remixes of vanilla Undertale songs as well as a bunch of new tracks. Something I've noticed through my 5 runs of this game is that they highlight motifs in the music constantly. For example, the song In Darkness has a segment from Heartache in it. And the song Vigorous Terrain contains a segment from Your Best Friend. Actually, while researching this to make sure I wasn't crazy with the Vigorous Terrain's leitmotifs, is that there's an entire wiki page on just the soundtrack's leitmotifs, and it's expansive too. One other cool thing that the soundtrack does is have a battle theme for every area you're in. The original Undertale has exactly 1 theme for fights, 2 if you count the 30-minute long Ruins Only Hard Modes fight theme. Yellow, on the other hand, has 4, 1 for each area with fightable enemies. And it's fucked up! Again, they didn't have to do this, but they did anyways. And it's all so good. You know what? Listen! I don't mean to make a segment about the music in every goddamn video I make about a game, but damn it, this shit is too good to not point out. Whew, where are we at now? Oh, this word speech counter says 19 minutes. I don't mean to keep making long videos, I really don't. This shit just happens. The creepypasta was supposed to be around 15 minutes. Shit! Well, there's no going back now, except for you if you haven't played Undertale Yellow, because this is the everything section of the video. Story, any loose features, actual discussions on specific characters, this is where it all is. And I strongly urge you to play the game to completion before going further. In case you can't tell, I like this game a lot, and I think it's an experience worth going in completely blind for. Well, as blind as you can, since people are spoiling bosses and key moments in YouTube thumbnails like fucking assholes. Anyways, here's a timestamp to skip to the conclusion of the video, and here's the timestamps to specific routes of the game if you want to skip 2 or over 1. Alrighty then, let's keep going. The story of Undertale Yellow starts with the familiar story of the war between humans and monsters, in which the monsters got cucked and forced underground. Many years later, 5 humans journeyed to the top of Mount Ebbet and never returned, leading Clover to journey into the Undertale to exact his form of justice, that form of justice changing depending on the route you take. Yellow's story more or less follows the same flow as the original story, that being going from point A to point B and meeting a lot of wacky characters along the way, until the game trauma dumps on you near the end. In the Pacifist run, you'll get to fully meet the following characters in order like it's a firing squad, which, I mean, it technically is. Oh, shit! The first face you'll meet is Flowey, who serves as your save point and main partner for the rest of the game, and is totally not a backstabbing double-crosser at all. definitely. From then on, you'll meet Dalv, who's a purple twink with barely any screen time, so it's hard to get a judge of his character other than he's a brooder, which might be enough for some people. In Snowden, you'll meet Martlet, the barely functioning royal guard. Martlet is the character that gets the most screen time in this game, and I'm completely fine with that. Martlet herself isn't particularly funny, but it doesn't seem like she was meant to be. She's a sweet girl who holsters both traits from Sans and Papyrus, that being Papyrus's puzzle making and Sans' laziness. Overall, she's just a sweet character, give or take. The next face you'll meet here is Mo, whose introduction is... He's a Grunkle Stan type hack through and through who offers you helpful items on your journey. Typically, at least one of his items will be useful per time he shows up. He does have the benefit though of being one of the funniest characters in this game, and his theme is fucking kick-ass, so there's that. Lastly, you'll meet Slurpee. Yes, that is his name, legally and carnally. He's a dipshit that got his tongue stuck to a pole like he's in a Christmas story and sends you on a fetch quest to get him something to get him unstuck. This is the only fetch quest in the game, which just makes it stand out more. I don't know why it's like this, but it doesn't really matter, I suppose. In the dunes, you'll meet the Feisty Five and Saroba. The Feisty Five are the law of the town in the dunes and are comprised of Moray the eel, Ace the something, Mooch the squirrel, and Ed the purple logger thingy. And at the top is Starlo, aka North Star. See, the funny thing about the Feisty Five is that outside of Starlo, the other four barely get jack fuck anything in terms of screen time. It's even worse than Dalv because there's 4 of them. Moray is nice, Ace is serious, Mooch is a thief, probably not a good trait of a lawmaker, and Ed gets hit by a train. I feel the same way with them as I do with Dalv. I like them, but I need more of them. It's kind of hard to fully like a character when you're given the breadcrumbs of them. The Feisty Four don't even have a genocide appearance, they're just gone. I like their designs, but that's really the most I can say. Now, Starlo doesn't have this problem. In fact, Starlo is the best character in this game, hands fucking down. It's not even a contest. No one even comes remotely close. See, Starlo's a big fan of the human culture he saw in things presumably like Gunsmoke and any other old Western shows, because honestly, they just start to blend together. I haven't watched any of them since like elementary school. I love this guy. He's cool, goofy, and funny, all wrapped up in an edible looking face. Yes, I will kill for him, but I would also kill for much less. Hey, that's a neat strand of numbers there. Finally, you'll meet Saroba, who is the epitome of fan character. She is also the person we are going to be spending the rest of the game on. The game's narrative completely shifts to her from here on out, so I hope you like her because unlucky if you don't. Saroba used to live with her husband Chujin, who's now dead, and her daughter Kaneko, who's in a coma. That's not funny, that is such a fucked up way to explain that. Holy fuck. And we get to learn all about Chujin in the Steamworks. He was an engineer at the Steamworks who created a line of robots that all failed and got him fired, leaving the seemingly last successful model behind, that being the robotic Royal Guard Axis Model 014, or just Axis. I like Axis a lot, mainly because his humor is deadpan and I am a big fan of deadpan humor. He chases you through the Steamworks for the entire duration of it and he gets more and more pissed off as time goes on. I love it. The other face in the Steamworks is this bitch. I hate this bitch. This entire segment is dangerously close to annoying. You have to do these puzzles back to back in order to gain a code, and this part fucking sucks. I'm moving on. At the end of the Steamworks, surprise, surprise, Saroba tries to betray you, but is stopped by this tough and terrific boy. And the rest of the game is about this betrayal because, oh, here comes the trauma dump. We're told about Chujin's dark past and Saroba's plans through tapes containing journal entries found in her basement. These entries tell that after Chujin was fired, a human attacked a monster that Kaneko was playing with in Snowden. Chujin 6 Axis on them, and a tape hidden behind his grave for some reason reveals that Axis absolutely fucked this human up, but now he has a human soul in his possession, which he begins using for experiments. He makes a serum that when combined with a boss monster soul can create a super soldier. Unfortunately, it fucking kills him, and his last words are, I swear to God. You know that funny blue raspberry serum? Don't use it, it's garbage. Instead, wait for another human to fall down that isn't a murderer. And don't involve Kaneko in this. Literally, anyone else in the entire underground will work except for her. This is the only thing I'm asking of you. Daughter? No. No, 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 no. In fact, never put daughter and experiments in the same sentence ever. Act like we don't even have a daughter. Starve and neglect her. I don't know anything that'll keep her away from this. Build a cardboard box, put her in that cardboard box, have that cardboard box have a flap that she can eat food of, put nothing but kibbles and bits down there. I don't fucking know anything. And then she proceeds to use it on her daughter anyways. You're a bad mother. After hearing about her dastardly plan plan, you team back up with Martlet and head into New Home to confront Saroba. The fight starts normal enough with fairly easy attacks until Saroba gets unreasonably pissed off that you aren't dead and beats you to less than fractions of your health, and then honestly, I'll let the scene speak for itself. I'm not gonna lie, this actually got me really hyped. It's dumb, I know, but let me enjoy things, damn it. The rest of the fight is phenomenal, and when you're in shmup mode, you now have a dash. That's sick as hell. Honestly, I like this fight more than Serial Murderer over here. Yeah, this fight is more visually impressive, but god damn do I like my arcade shooters. I think this fight actually has some of the best orchestrated attacks in the entire game. I also have to mention that the music for this fight is incredible. I'm not doing another music segment, but you can hear it in the background. Your objective now is to fill this crystal above her head and then destroy the mask that her daughter gave her. Each time you take a chunk out of it, you get a lore dump about her, and this is how you find out about her act of being what I like to call a shitty parent. Look, I don't care that Kaneko literally asked for it. Chujin's one fucking wish was for her to not get involved. I'm sorry, Saroba, but I don't feel bad for you because you fucked around and found out. That is not my problem. Once you bust her mask up, you're given the choice to spare or kill her, and if you're wondering what happens if you kill her, Asgore just bodies you and takes your soul. Once you spare her, Saroba comes to her senses and realizes that this was fucking stupid. But now what? Clover can't go to Asgore because they'll die, and as much as they wish it, they can't convince Asgore to let them go. It doesn't work like that. They can't live in the underground either because eventually the Royal Guard will catch them and at worst hurt those they love. But it's not fair to juggle Clover around while other humans get killed. That's honestly more messed up than anything else. Clover's sense of justice warped through this journey. What was once a mission to avenge the fallen humans has turned into something more. Clover firsthand got to see the struggles and hardships of the people that they were supposed to hate. Now he wants to help his friends, to help all of monsterkind. There is no right answer to this. No matter what, someone is going to get hurt. But with this, at least there's only one casualty, and it's of their own volition. Clover sacrifices their soul to push monsters closer to the outside and make sure none of their friends get harmed, fulfilling their form of justice and earning their rest. Until a voice calls out for help. What the fuck was that? I like this ending, do not get me wrong, but it doesn't make a whole lot of, sense. When it comes to reading between the lines and finding the meanings of literature and media, I'm none too good at it, and it usually falls on deaf ears. However, I still don't think this ending makes a lot of sense. The entire Saroba fight is you battling for your soul only to give it up. Even Flowey says that you just become a cog in the machine. There's not even a guarantee that this would have done anything. Clover just took a gamble and got lucky. I'm still also iffy about the make the entire ending about Saroba thing, especially when it's entirely her fault for not heeding when she was warned. It's a bit messy, but overall, it's a nice story that left me satisfied, and these are just things I picked up after thinking about what just happened. Though you may have forgotten that Flowey is the one in control of the save state, so all it takes is a simple reset to... In the original Undertale, the neutral route was just kinda there. It was basically the same up until the Omega Flowey fight, which is the best fight in the game, but overall it's not worth doing, especially when you can just do it on a pacifist run and then be brought back and do a true pacifist run. But here, they actually did a little bit more with it. The game's mostly the same up until the end of the dunes, where Saroba doesn't join you in the Steamworks because you partook in a little bad bending, so she can't use your soul. This makes it so that you have to explore a different part of the Steamworks since you don't have Saroba to unlock the doors. Flowey's also more present in this route, and the pacifist route, he gets almost entirely sidelined by the dunes and only briefly comes back in parts. Here, no one can interrupt him, so we get a lot more of the second best character. There's nothing too noteworthy about this part of the Steamworks except the fact that you don't have to deal with this bitch anymore. Best route! So we're gonna skip all the way to the end of the route where you have a rooftop meeting with Martlet, which Flowey is very much against. On the rooftop, Martlet pulls out a syringe and tells you that she did have a plan to stop your violence, but she can't bring herself to do it. You did spare some people, so there's at least some good in you. Too bad Flowey guts her. He finally breaks the facade he's been playing the entire game and takes your soul for himself. But at this point, we know Clover's a persistent bastard and won't give up that easily, so the rest of this route takes place in an internal battle for control between Flowey and Clover. Flowey reveals that you are not the first Clover, or the second, or the third, or 10th, or 30th, or even the 100th. Countless Clovers have come down, and at the start, Clover's journey would end with them living with Toriel, until Flowey rigged it to get you to leave the ruins. But that also didn't work as Clover couldn't get through the base Undertale's locations. Fucking weak-ass bitch. Eventually, Eventually, Flowey decided that the only way forward was to split the path off immediately and tamper with the switch to make you fall into the deep ruins, with the rest being the last 5-ish minutes 100 times over. After this big reveal, Flowey just decides to beat the shit out of you. Welcome to the Earthbound Binding of Isaac delirium-ass first part of the Flowey boss fight, where you can't do anything other than spare or heal when the game lets you. This fight's honestly pretty unnerving, and something I like is that depending on who you kill in the route, Flowey will imitate their form in the fight. So if you murdered every boss in the game, by God, this fight's gonna hurt a lot more. After a while, you get these full screen bullet hell parts where if you survive, you'll get vortexed into a chase where Flowey's roots hunt you down Undyne style. Get to the save point at the very end and the cycle will continue. I can honestly gush about this part of the fight for a while. The pixel art is really good, and the Flowey breakcore is pretty damn funny. But I think this speaks for itself. After you survive this phase, you get taken to a false Snowden where you meet up with Martlet again. Maybe not. Well, if you thought this fight was crazy so far, then, well, fuck. Welcome to the best fight in all of Undertale, and I do stand by that. I don't even have enough adjectives to describe this fight. It's non-compos mentis. It follows the same structure as the original Omega Flowey fight. Survive until you're taken to a different aspect of the fight, beat that, and rinse repeat until the fight's over. Though those different aspects make this fight. After a while, Flowey grabs you and gives you a pick your poison roulette on what you want to tackle first. These sections have you fight different versions of Flowey in shmup combat. Look at this! What the hell? Every one of them has a different art style and music accompanying it. I keep saying that they didn't have to do this, but you really didn't need to pump the Omega Flowey fight full of acid. The battery kind. Again, this just speaks for itself. I could just play the whole fight and you'd probably Danny DeVito, I get it. It really does feel like a cutthroat fight for survival here. After you pluck all of Flowey's petals, he reaches the end of his rope. Okay, in the original Undertale, at the end of all the routes, the game goes, haha, fourth wall break, I am video game, which is neat, except when it happens on every route, and do not get me started on the Genocide Route's bullshit. Yellow has exactly one fourth wall break during gameplay, and it's in this fight. For a few seconds, the game drops everything, and Flowey just stares directly at you. There's no audio cues or anything, and if you weren't paying attention, you might have missed it. Not gonna front. This is creepy as hell, and is a damn good fourth wall break, because nothing like this happens again. See, when it's constant, it just becomes a factor, but when it's rare, it becomes an anomaly, which fits this better. Flowey realizes that this will never end. Him and Clover are too stubborn to give up, so this internal battle will go on forever. So he decides that instead of fighting for all of eternity, he'll reset, and gives you the advice that maybe a neutral route won't be the path of salvation. You gotta pick a lane, dude. And with that, the game resets. But we already tried peace, and picking and choosing who lives and dies didn't work either, so maybe what if no one lived? Oh, it's bad bends as far as the eye can see from here on out. The Genocide Route in this game has Clover's mind twist to think that what they're doing is the right thing to do, earning this route the Vengeance Route name. The game constantly tells you that this isn't justice and that the other humans weren't all saints, but by the end, Clover's a cold killing machine, so I don't think they care all too much. The noticeable changes are the Saroba, Axis, and both Martlet fights. Martlet's Snowden fight, for some reason, beat my ass purple. I don't want to tell you how many times I died because I don't know. It's just a harder version of a regular fight, but this bitch beat my teeth in. She even lets you get half of her health down at the start of the fight for free because she tries to calm you down. But for some reason, I just kept letting her split my skull open like a fucking watermelon. Saroba's fight is similar to her Pacifist fight, except that she got bumped down from final boss to mid-game boss. This is one of my favorite fights in the entire game. The attacks are so well done here and each have distinct patterns that are fun to learn. Except for one that feels like bullshit. It's both easier and harder than her Pacifist fight, if that makes sense. It was easier than Martlet's fight for some reason, I can say that. The main thing in this fight is health conservation, not making sure you have full health, but making sure you have the top health to handle it. Her red beam attack drains your max health, and if you're not careful, you'll be looking at 10 to 20 max HP being what you have to work with towards the end. Axis's fight is neat as hell because it's a role reversal of his Pacifist fight. Instead of letting you wield the trash can lid, he himself wields it and it just becomes an endurance match. After a while, Axis fucks up royally when he tells Clover that he killed the Blue Soul. This pisses Clover off so bad that they raise 7 levels in seconds, reverse their heart in the blaster mode, and holy shit. And then there's the final boss. See, in any route you can't kill Martlet on the first encounter, and towards the end your rooftop meeting with her becomes a pseudo judgment hall. She still has a syringe that she plans on using on herself if you become too big of a threat. Well, guess who's too big of a threat now? Fuck this boss. Fuck this boss. Oh, it's supposed to be like that. You're being punished for being a shitty person. I'm completely confident in saying that this is harder than fighting Sans, because Sans has patterns and rhythm and sense to his attacks. This just throws everything against the wall. You wanna know how bad this is? Almost every no-hit video for this boss talks about how shit it is. The dash is your saving grace because of the iframes it gives you. For some of these attacks, all you can do is dash and call upon the life around you like some sort of shit spirit bomb. And this is just the first phase. That's right, this is a 2-phase goddamn fight. Once you bust up her chest armor, you can finally start doing damage to her. This is easier by a supercontinent, but it's still hard as hell. They actually had to add the ability to heal through the act menu in phase 2 because of how draining phase 1 is. You wanna know how hard this fight is?
I'm still fighting her!
It has been days. It might even have been weeks. I'm losing my sense of time. If, and that's a big if, you manage to beat her, you're treated to an honestly horrific scene of Martlet screaming and melting from the serum. Then Flowey shows up and snaps at you for basically putting the entire underground on lockdown. Unfortunately for him though, Clover's now in control of the timeline, which Flowey lets you have it because of that, though he doesn't get to shine for very long as Clover rips him apart piece by piece, leaving his lifeless husk behind. Clover then heads to the castle and confronts Asgore, who tries to tell you that your fate was sealed the moment you fell down. But by God, we know how good they are at listening. With Asgore's soul, Clover makes it to the barrier, collects the souls, and leaves the underground, his sense of justice being fulfilled. And that's all of Undertale Yellow! This video became way larger than I expected and completely shot the schedule I had, but it's fine. Undertale Yellow is a colossal achievement. It's one of the best games from 2023, and it's one of the better games I've played in a hot second. This game was definitely worth the wait, and more than lived up to the Undertale name. Yeah, it has its hiccups, some by virtue of being an Undertale game and some of its own volition. But overall, this game was incredible. And through this, I've found some more neat Undertale fan games. I didn't know that this was an active community. The one I'm most interested in is Undertale Nihilism, so when that's released in a few years, maybe we'll find ourselves back here again. You know what's the most fucked up thing about this though? Is that this game's free. That's criminal. I know they can't monetize this game because, obviously, but the fact that this game is free is still insane. I really want to see this team do an original project. I don't think they will, but I definitely feel that they could. They more than showed that they're capable, and I want to see what they would do with their own unique world and mechanics. Deltarune still bodies both of these though, and it's only on its second chapter.